Hello and welcome to a track summary / review of Week 5 in the Overwatch League, plus community MVP results for Week 5 in the Overwatch League as well. This week's homestand was hosted by the Washington Justice. The primary highlights were Houston upsetting Paris, Washington getting their first homestand win, and Paris beating Philadelphia to end the Fusion's win streak. Moving on to the first match of the week, the Toronto Defiant versus the Florida Mayhem. Sadly, my team, the Toronto Defiant, would lose this match, losing it 3-1. Toronto won the first map 2-1, but then Florida would take the rest of the maps, winning Junkertown 1-0, Blizzard World 2-1, and Hanamura 1-0. This left Toronto's record at 1 win and 4 losses, with a map ratio of -6. This left them 12th overall at the end of the next day, while Florida were left at 2 wins and 3 losses, with a map ratio of -2, which left them 9th at the end of the next day. Now, moving on to community MVP votes and the one-sentence summaries. Yaki would get the 3 points with his percentage of 53.2. Gangnam Jin would get the 2 points with his percentage of 46.8, while BQB would get the 1 point with his percentage of 38.7. For Toronto's one-sentence summary, I decided to put what happened to the stonks, because all their stonks, they're gone. They had a really good showing against Philadelphia, and it's just gone downhill from there. I've barely seen any positives in their gameplay whatsoever. I mean, every once in a while, Agility, Shortfall, or Logics might do really well and pop off, but that's it. It just has all gone downhill since then. While for Florida, I put only one team to compare these guys to. And for me, I have to compare them to the Washington Justice because that's the only team I can realistically compare them to at this stage. Because, just Florida, they look really bad against some top teams, but really good against some bottom teams. Very similar to Washington. And I think the two might have similar lineups as well. But when put together, I reckon the two teams are pretty even. And I reckon that if they would play, Washington might win most of the time, but it also really depends on the hero pools if the two would play. Now, moving on to the Paris Eternal versus the Houston Outlaws, which the Houston Outlaws won 0-3. They won on Oasis 1-2, Havana 0-1, and Eichenwald 1-2. This left Paris' record at 3 wins and 2 losses, with a map ratio of +2, but they will play again the next day against the Philadelphia Fusion. While Houston's record was left at 2 wins and 5 losses with a map ratio of -6, and this left them 11th at the end of the next day. Moving on to the MVP votes and the one-sentence summaries, Dante would take the 3 points with his percentage of 71. Blase would get the 2 points with his percentage of 58.1, while Muma would get the 1 point with his percentage of 45.2. For Paris' one-sentence summary, I decided to put, did they even prepare for this game at all? Because in my opinion, it looked like they didn't prepare for it whatsoever, and sort of assumed, oh yeah, we'll just roll Houston. They're Houston. How good could Houston be in hero pools? They're Houston, of course. And then Houston ended up rolling them. And it just showed in Paris' gameplay, they didn't seem prepared whatsoever for what Houston was throwing at them. And for Houston's one-sentence summary, I put, where the hell was this form a few weeks ago? Because holy shit, this form that they've had against Toronto and Paris would have been much more useful in the first few weeks, a few weeks ago. So they wouldn't be at 5 losses already and their map ratio at -6. I mean, it's good that they're discovering the form now, but it's also put them at a disadvantage as they now need to win more than lose for the rest of the season, which puts the coaching and the players under more pressure. Now, moving on to the finale of day 1, the Boston Uprising versus the Washington Justice. The Washington Justice would win this match 1-3. Boston took the first map, Busan, 2-0, but then Washington would win Havana 1-2, Eichenwald 2-3, and Horizon Lunar Colony 1-2. This left Boston's record at 1 win and 3 losses, with a map ratio of -7, while for Washington it left them at 2 wins and 3 losses with a map ratio of 0. Now, Moving on to the community MVP votes and the one-sentence summaries, Corey will get 3 more points with his percentage of 77.4. Stratus will get 2 points with his percentage of 50, while AimGod would get the 1 point with his percentage of 45.2. For Boston's one-sentence summary, I decided to put there are many reasons for this loss, and first reason, they're playing not that good. Their players playing aren't that good. Their main healer, Swimmer, he was subbed out and then brought a new main healer, Halo. I reckon his inexperience cost them. The hero pools might have cost them as well, mainly because it's so stressful on teams and coaches to adapt to the new metas with the hero pools. Even what the Washington coaches said, it's very stressful on them as well, even though they had over a week to prepare, they were barely getting any sleep. So imagine how Boston would have felt with only like 4 to 5 days to prepare because of travel and having nearly no sleep. The players would have been tired as hell and not as well rounded as Washington. And for Washington, I put a much needed win. Mainly because they finally got some wins in the second half of the match, and they finally got a homestand win, and they're finally trying to get their season back on track. If Washington had lost this game, it was inexcusable. The last few weeks they've had a few reasons to lose their matches, primarily being sickness and some travel issues as well. But this time, it was just plain, they had all the advantages in the world, and they took advantage, and they won the match as well. Now, moving on to the 5-map epic between the Paris Eternal and the Philadelphia Fusion. Paris would take the match 3-2, first winning Ilios 2-0, and Junkertown 3-2. But Philadelphia would take the next 2 maps, winning Blizzard World 0-1, and Hanamura 1-2. But Paris would barely take the match in a nail-biting finish on Oasis 2-1. This left Paris' record at 4 wins and 2 losses, with a map ratio of +3, and this left them 5th at the end of the week. While for Philadelphia, this handed them their first loss, but they still had 5 wins and a map ratio of +10, but this dropped them down to 4th at the end of the week. Now, moving on to the community MVP votes and the one-sentence summaries, XE convincingly got the 3 points, with a percentage of 90.3. Soon got the 2 points with his percentage of 66.1, while Carpe got the 1 point with his percentage of 46.8. For Paris' one-sentence summary, I put, yep, they definitely only prepared for this match, because, well, it was obvious they only prepared for it. It was the one match they were competitive in this week, and this was the top team, while Houston were one of the bottom teams right now. If that's not evidence that they only prepared for this match, I don't know what is. While for Philadelphia, I put the streaks come to an end. If people don't know, in this match, 2 streaks came to an end. Their win-loss record streak, which left them at 5-1 now, and their control map record. Before the match they were 6-0 on control maps, and after the match, now they're 6-2 on control maps. So that means 2 impressive winning streaks have come to an end. But they still have a great record on assault maps, with a record of 5-0. Now, moving on to the New York Excelsior versus the Washington Justice. New York took the match 3-1, first losing the PAL 0-2, but then taking Dorado 3-2, Kings Row 3-1, and Horizon Lunar Colony 1-0. This left New York's record at 5 wins and 1 loss, with a map ratio of +11. This has lifted them to 3rd spot overall. While Washington has been left at 2 wins and 4 losses, with a map ratio of -2, but they are still 10th overall. Now, moving on to the community MVP votes and the one-sentence summaries. Nene got the 3 points quite easily, with his percentage of 80.6. Libero would take the 2 points, with his percentage of 54.8, while Jonak would take the 1 point, with his percentage of 45.2. For New York's one-sentence summary, I just decided to put the dominance continues because they have been dominating since their loss to Philadelphia, in my opinion. They look like they don't want to drop any more games. They just look plain dominant. They look back to their old New York way, except instead of defensive, they're aggressive. And for Washington, I put a long way from the top because this match showed that Washington are a long way from the top teams, but they can still contest with the middle pack in my opinion. But when it comes to the top teams, they just get done. Now, we move on to the final match of the week, the Boston Uprising versus the Atlanta Reign. And that match was an obliteration, as Atlanta took the game 0-3. They first took Oasis 0-2, Havana 1-2, and Iconmob 2-3. This left Boston at 1 win and 4 losses, with a map ratio of -10. This has left Boston at 13th overall after the end of the day, while Atlanta is at 2 wins and 1 loss, with a map ratio of +4, and that's left them 6th at the end of the day. Now, moving on to the community MVP votes and the 1-sentence summaries. Edison got the 3 points in his debut match, with his percentage of 83.9. Hawk got the 2 points, with his percentage of 67.7, while Erster got the 1 point, with his percentage of 59.7. For Boston's 1-sentence summary, I just put obliterated, because they were obliterated, no way around it. Atlanta outdid them in every, well, just part of the game. They have better players, they have better teamwork, and they're just playing better, and there's nothing really I can think of to better describe it for Boston. While for Atlanta, I put back on track because after that great win against Toronto, then an embarrassment against Paris, they have dominated Boston here to get themselves back on track, in my opinion. They're starting to get more motivation, they're starting to get momentum, in my opinion. Now, moving on to the community MVP leaderboards, Carpe and Exy are tied in first with 15 points. Corey is in third with 11 points. Then Hopper and Glister are tied in fourth with 9 points. Haxal and Sato are tied in sixth with 6 points, while Jonak, Dante, Blase, Gangnam Jin, and Libero are tied in 8th on 5th points, and this means that both Dante and Blase, and also Gangnam Jin and Libero have all entered the top 10 overall. For the rest of the leaderboards, I will have you pause the video and read them yourselves, thank you. Now, moving on to the Overwatch League standings. Vancouver are in first, up 1 spot. San Fran are in second, also up 1 spot, and New York are in third, also up 1 spot. Philadelphia are in fourth, down 3 spots, while Paris remain in fifth. Atlanta are up 1 spot in sixth, while London have gone down 1 spot to 7th. The Valiant remain in 8th, and Florida have gone up 2 spots to 9th. The Justice remain in 10th, while Houston have gone up 2 spots to 11th, while Toronto and Boston have both gone down spots, with Toronto going down 1 to 12th, and Boston going down 4 to 13th. The 5 teams who are yet to play all remain equal 14th, while the Glads are still in 19th, and the Dallas Fuel are still in 20th. A big thank you to all those who watched this video, and please subscribe and like of course, and a big thank you to the 62 people who voted in this week's community MVP polls.